name's Nyle. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Advisor Circle. We put on Future Proof. We're behind Exchange. Just want to say thank you to everybody for coming out. It means a lot to me. Today I'm going to speak with Samir, which I'm very excited about. Firstly, because I think you're a great representation of what Future Proof is. He's a young founder, recklessly just going after it and just super ambitious to a point that it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. And he thinks about the future of finance. He really cares about the community and the people that it impacts. He thinks about scale and all the people that interact with finance and how to change it. So I'm really excited that you're here. Thanks for making time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I got to get into the little factoids so that people know who we're dealing with here. Samir is the CEO and co-founder of Vise, a venture-backed fintech startup using artificial intelligence to revolutionize portfolio construction and management for financial advisors. Vise has raised enough capital to be considered a unicorn, is backed by Sequoia Capital and Founders Fund, among many others. To me, like I said, it would be harder to find somebody else to get up on stage and say, this is who I would make a bet on long term, especially because we can start earlier and the benefits of compounding just put time on my side, so I'm excited about that one. And yeah, thanks, Samir, for coming. Welcome to Future Proof.
Thank you.
So first, let's get right into it. Vise does a lot of things. Primarily thinking about asset management and the landscape that it's in, what are the insights that you've developed over the last 6 years running this company and getting to know financial advisors in the industry?
All right, so if we start at the beginning to what led us to starting Vise, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so financial advisors are kind of a core part of our life in the Midwest. There was this narrative that robo-advisors, that personal financial management would replace financial advisors, that end clients would just work with some kind of technology platform, an app to receive all their digital investment advice. But knowing the relationship my parents had with their financial advisors, like my dad's best friend growing up, we knew that the advisor was here to stay. That the relationship that they built with the end client was so powerful that technology could never replace it. Rather, advisors kind of needed technology to arm them against technology. And it was like the core mission behind Vise of how do we build the best technology that independent financial advisors can use, because we knew that the independent advisor trend was going to start to take off, that advisors were leaving the big institutions, they were breaking away, they were starting up their own independent firms, and they needed to provide a personalized advice solution for the first time, right? Because at this point in time, 5, 6 years ago, personalization became like a core part of our life, right? How we shop, how we consume content, how we eat. Everything was personalized, but investing was not personalized. It was still generic mutual fund ETF products. So the initial thesis for Vise is how do we deliver all investors, regardless of age or net worth, access to personalized investment advice in a way where we can empower the advisor rather than try and replace them.
What I think is really interesting with that too is that you recognize that it's not just like a front-end application that needs to be solved. It's a big data problem, and that in order to deliver personalization at scale, you need to be able to crunch a bunch of data and make use of it in ways that haven't been done before. How are you thinking about the big data problem that you see out there and why legacy companies might not be able to catch up with you?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? So when the robo-advisor advent first started, big institutions quickly caught on, and they built their own products, right? They built their own robo-advisory products, because what robo-advisors were solving for was almost like a design problem of how do we make it easy to invest and use ETFs or like a generic model to be able to invest your clients into it. But the challenge is people always came to us and they're like, well, if you guys catch on, if personalized investing is the next big thing, what holds some institution from coming back and building it? And the reality is it's a really complex technical problem, right? Because you are looking at 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 inputs for an individual client. Age, net worth, social preferences, existing investments, all kinds of different types of inputs, and you're optimizing each individual client portfolio. And it becomes a very complex data problem. Our data model is incredibly complex. So you're running optimizations on every portfolio every day, checking for rebalances, checking for tax loss harvesting every single day on every single client portfolio. So it's a really complicated piece of software to build, which creates a sense of defensibility. And then when you think about the traditional incumbents in the space, a lot of them are still using the same kind of on-premises software that was built 2 decades ago.
Right.
And the amount of tech debt that have been accumulated by a lot of these institutions is so much that in order to move past it, they just have to tear it all down, start from scratch like cloud native, And it's a hard, expensive thing to do. And a lot of people are like, I'm not going to bite the bullet. I'm not going to do this.
Right.
I'm going to just keep on trying to build on top of what I have. And I'm going to hire IBM, and I'm going to hire more and more engineers that know how to build on top of this. And that's a hard thing to do. And what a lot of them should be doing is just replace all of that, on-prem legacy software and, build it up from scratch.
So you've talked a lot about you're building the financial advisor operating system. And when you think about an operating system for a financial advisor and the clients that they serve, because it's really thinking about how does this pass through to the client experience, and if that's their bread and butter, so if they're not happy, then the product doesn't matter. So you guys are thinking a lot about the end client experience, and you're also thinking about running a practice, saving advisors time, giving them their time back to do the things that they're best at, like manage the relationship, do more personalization that a computer can't do. How are you thinking about what does that OS look like now, and what does it look like 10 years from now? Because you're a long-term thinker. We had this conversation earlier. When he was 16, he was thinking about what do I want to be at 25? When I was 16, I was like, how do I not get caught sneaking in through my window? So the way you think about time, I think is a really important thing too.
Yeah, I think, you asked me earlier, what does success look like to us? And I think success, at the end of the day, AUM is a metric of success, but we were talking, it's a lagging indicator, right? What success looks like is if an advisor was able to use Vise and they're able to double their practice, right? And they were able to, manage 10 more clients or 20 more clients or 30 more clients than they were before, that's what success looks like. We've created efficiency, we've saved them time, we've created the ability for them to grow, and they've all been able to do this by leveraging our software. So I think the operating system in that sense is how do we help them build and manage portfolios in a way where it unlocks efficiency for them. And what that looks like today is probably going to be slightly different than what it looks like in 10 years. In 10 years, it's going to be far more intelligence. It's going to be more automated. There's going to be more asset classes that encompass it. But it's the same fundamental principles as you think about how the software is built today versus what it looks like from 10 years from now.
What was the response when you're going to big venture firms, private equity firms, and talking about, hey, we're going to dismantle the traditional asset management model, right? We're going to be able to create customizations. We're going stocks, direct indexing. Are they like, oh no, I have a big bet over here, or are they all about it? What was that experience like?
They were not. We probably pitched, 200 investors. I sent cold emails every single day to all these different investors. We didn't know anyone.
I love that.
And I was
I'm a cold emailer myself. I apologize if you got. I don't do it anymore, but I did. I apologize if you ever got a cold email from me.
And I just I got all these one-line responses, which is Wealthfront, and I'm like, no, there's a story here, which is the financial advisor, right? The financial advisor is a core part of the story, and I had to shift the narrative in Silicon Valley almost of advisors are the future, right? In the same way that the agricultural revolution took place and 98% of the population were farmers and 2% of the population did all other things, and then farming equipment and machinery came along, and then today it's 2% of the population in farming, and 98% of people do other jobs, right?
Diffusions of innovation.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
That AI is not here to replace investment advisors, just like it isn't here to replace a lot of other jobs. It's here to augment, and people's jobs are going to start to change. And the relationship that an advisor has with their client is so important, as I suggested, that it can't be replaced by technology. So we had to shift the narrative of technology is here to empower advisors. We're going to build that technology. And the market is so massive that if you win, you can build a $100+ billion company.
So you brought up Wealthfront, and I'm just going off book a little bit. UBS was going to buy them, and they didn't. They recanted, and I think they picked up some shares as a purchase anyways. What did you think about that? Was there a signal there, or was it just all noise, I'm not worried about it?
I think that Wealthfront is a very different business, and we have all the respect in the world for what they've built, but it's a very different business than Vise. It's a very different business than what services advisors. And I think UBS just saw, valuations taking a hit for other.
Is that what you think it was?
I
It was
think
just a
that's what it
valuation
was.
thing?
I think it was partially
Not like a
valuations.
fundamental business. We're shorting on robo-advisory, basically. We're not long robo anymore.
No, I think they probably realized they could either build it in-house, potentially, if that was one of the reasons, or they just realized that the price that they paid was probably too high given the new market environment.
That makes sense. Well, I want to steer us back on track. Something that I think is really interesting as I've worked in many startups, venture-backed, bootstrapped, the ability to scope a project seems to be what separates the founders with that superpower from those who don't. The example that I give is setting sail across the ocean If you are off track by 1 degree, you won't notice for the first 500 miles, but once you get across the ocean, you're going to be in a completely different destination altogether. And when you think about scope, people can scope out what does the next week, month look like, quarter, pretty easily and with consistency, but you're thinking very long term with a lot of accuracy, which I think is commendable and astonishing. How did you get good at scoping out this business specifically when you're thinking about projects, tasks, teams? There's so much, complexities there.
I mean, I think it all has to start out with a vision, right? Like, what do you believe the industry is going to look like in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And how do you think that the incumbents, how do you think that others in the space are going to shape into that kind of vision? And as you have that vision, the decisions you make will either align with that vision or it won't align with that vision. So if you know the general North Star direction you want to go in, it makes it easier to make decisions. And as you get closer to that North Star, both your learnings will compound, so you'll know which direction to go in, if that was the right North Star, and you'll get closer in scope and how you want to solve the problem.
Love that. What's going through this process, and I'm sure you have a lot of mentors or you read a lot, listening to different things. What's some of the best advice that you've gotten that was actionable that you remember?
I think the best advice, I don't remember who told me this, maybe it's just like kind of innate advice, and it's one thing to know it, it's a different thing to truly internalize it, is if you truly believe something, like you can't quit no matter how hard it gets. No matter how many road bumps, pitfalls, you just got to keep going and let those challenges make you stronger. And I think that a startup at the end of the day isn't about the smartest person, it isn't about the one with the most resources, it's about the one with the most tenacity and the most endurance in some sense. And if you can blow through all of those challenges, you'll eventually make something of it.
How many no's have you gotten?
I mean, so many. I'm like the king of rejection. We've had many investor no's, we've had many hire no's, we've had new client no's, but the key is like how do you learn from each and every single no to continuously improve.
It's admirable. I was thinking about just the tenacity that you spoke to. It's clear to me that you have it, and just getting reps in and reps early. Where did you get that tenacity from?
I don't know.
Were you always that way? Or did
No.
it come once you got this idea and you're like, let's run with it?
I think, like early on, I was like always a quitter. Like, I don't know, like picked up a sport or an instrument, and I just like quit a couple of years in. And I think that when I truly found like Vise, like this problem was the one I wanted to solve, it was kind of like, it wasn't just a passion, it was like a life calling. I knew that no matter how hard it got, I couldn't quit. And I just kind of stuck to that.
I love it, man. That's why I think you're so great, is that a lot of people have an idea. Job said it really well, that the difference between an idea and a product is this massive gap. And a lot of people have a great idea, but it's nothing without execution. And you've been able to do both at a very early age, which I think is a huge sign for what the future looks like. So hot seat question. You've raised $150 million. How long ago was that?
That was over the course of 3 years.
3 years. You don't raise that money unless you have a plan to spend it and invest it. You're building it's an infrastructure play, not like let's go capture assets and fence it. What are you planning on spending the money on?
Mostly talent. What differentiates Vise over most companies in the space and elsewhere is that we've tried to hire the best talent, both across finance, across tech, across all kinds of different dimensions. How do you take engineers that were the best in class at Stripe or Airbnb and have them solve the most important problems in investment management? How do you take the best engineers, the best quants from Citadel, Two Sigma, and apply them to solving problems with Vise? And I think the misnomer we had was you needed a lot of people to do that. And I think it's more about hiring the right people in a small group of the right people that are aligned with the right vision in order to solve that problem, as opposed to hiring lots of people.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going back to Jobs probably because I just brought him up. But when he came back to Apple, the story is he only wanted the A team. And there are a lot of people that were from like IBM and Dell, and he wanted speed, and he didn't, they just didn't like the environment that they were in because of that. And I think you're taking the approach from the ground up of A team only.
See, it's not just A team though, from like the conventionally the best universities or the best companies, it's also like, who's the undervalued talent, like from the industry? Who's someone who maybe worked in an RIA and they had this personal gripes and they were the ones handling the back office and the operations and they like felt the pain and they're willing to work harder than anyone else to try and solve this problem. And like, how do you find those people, unlock their passion and put them towards this project? So it's like kind of a balancing act of taking like conventionally very smart people with people that have something to prove. Like, I had no background. I was just this kid from Cleveland that tried to start this business. Had something to prove. Right? And I think when you blend like excitement, when you blend passion, when you invent something to prove with great experience, you can accomplish something awesome.
Yeah, great recipe. Let's take a question from the crowd. We're doing Slido. First one I see, customization is really difficult to scale. How has Vise solved that?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the biggest things we're kind of solving at Vise. If you think about anyone who offers kind of like a personalized portfolio solution, a custom indexing solution, a direct indexing solution, however you might want to call it, it's all manual, right? You're working with a portfolio manager. You're working through kind of traditional asset management rails. And it means that the feedback loop to building a portfolio is 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks. Whereas Vise, it's instantaneous, right? A client comes to an advisor's office, they give their story, they give their spiel, and Vise is able to build a portfolio in 30 seconds or less. So that advisor can use it as a sales proposition in order to win business. So being automated, being without having to have a human in the loop is like a core part of our business. It's a core part of our value proposition. And I think that it's mostly an infrastructure problem. It's like it's a data problem. And that's where we've invested a lot of our resources.
So I have a personal question. I've kind of just observed this being on the inside and building SaaS products and seeing how they go to market. You are definitely an insider as well. When we think about advisor tech, like a software solution can roll out with a minimal amount of funding. You can take a spreadsheet, create an interface for it, get a booth, and start slanging away. But an advisor, how do they know what's good tech and bad tech that might compromise all the information that they have is their livelihood. Like, that is what pays the bills. And do you think that there's going to be like a formal evaluation method for whether or not tech can even be introduced from an advisor, SEC registered advisor, to the end user? Like, you has to be SOC 1, 2 audited, things like that.
I think there needs to be someone who builds. I guess Kitsy's has kind of started to do this.
Right.
There needs to be like an official guide for technology.
You do think that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that this is also one of the spaces where it's hard, at least around asset management in particular. Other practice growth tools, it's different. You can kind of easily bootstrap a piece of tech. In our case, we have a value advice, which is called Be Worthy of Trust. And it's every decision that we make, are we building trust with our clients? Are we building trust with ourselves? Are we putting something in front of them that will work? Because we are managing their most important asset, which is their client's capital. Mm-hmm. So we can't just give a bootstrap solution that we just hack together and offer that to clients. Like, it has to be perfect. We have to have spent time with our advisors. We have to have spent time understanding their problems and making sure that the solution works and really putting in that care and quality. So I don't think it is one of those problems where you can just kind of bootstrap and offer a vanilla solution to the
If you were an advisor, how would you look at a solution to figure out if you should introduce it to your tech stack?
I would first understand what I'm trying to solve for. What's the hair on fire problem? What is the thing that's kind of keeping me up at night? What is the thing that is holding me back from growth? And like, be really honest with myself about that. So when I fully understand that, then I would start to evaluate the different options, right? What are the potential solves for that? So I would look at advisors that look just like me, that have solved this problem. Like, I think it's important as an advisor to build a community of advisors, right? The same way as a startup, right? I have a lot of founder friends because one of them might have solved a problem that I'm trying to solve, right? An internal problem, a product problem. So why, make the mistake when you can learn from someone else's? So what are the other advisors? Who's the advisor that you're looking up to, that you want to be in 5 years? What are they doing? How are they running their business? What is something that they're doing really well that you can learn from? And it might be using a software like Vise. It might not be. It might be hiring a certain person. I'm not sure. But whatever that might be, learn from someone else who's already done it.
Love that. And you're clearly a voracious learner to me. And knowledge compounds. That's something that you said to me that stuck out. And I absolutely believe in that as well. Education always coming first to the clients and the advisors being able to do that. If I was an advisor and I was interviewing for a position at my firm, I needed a portfolio manager. and you walked in, I would hire you on the spot. And
should
what I
hire
think
me.
is
I'm a horrible
interesting
employee.
is that, I mean, we do one of these, it'd be a hot seat, I'd be on the hot side, you'd be on the shade side, and you know, no brainer to me. But what's interesting is that with Vise, you can hire your brain and 100, you know, A-teamers that have all kind of come together in this amazing way to procreate new ideas for a fraction of what it would cost to hire you as an employee. And I'm curious, you know, when I hear from founders that are super smart and well articulate and they've executed, I don't know if people always think about, wow, if I wanted to hire him, how much would that cost? But I get him at his most optimized version with this platform. You know, for now, obviously it's going to continually improve. So that's just kind of a thought that came to my head.
Yeah, I mean, I would be a horrible employee, so don't hire me. But I think that what makes us different than just about any other company in the space, at least institution that might be offering this, and Kevin giving a shout out right here, one of our clients
What's up,
from
Kevin?
Providence. Like I personally spend time with clients to understand like what is the big problem that you guys are facing like while using the product. Like I watch them use the product and try and understand how can we solve this for you? How can I just put the team on this particular problem and figure out how to solve it, right? And I think when you're working with people as personal as an advisor, you really need to understand from them, you know, what are the problems that they're experiencing and how can you help solve them? How can I apply this awesome engineering team, all these R&D resources we have to solve all of our customers, all of our advisors' problems and do it real time, faster than anyone else?
I love that. I know you think about time differently. I already mentioned that. So like age, definitely just a number thing. I know if someone's thinking about being a founder and they're 16 or they're 45, I put you guys all in the same category of crazy because I would never want all that stress. What would be your advice to somebody who's considering starting their own company and being a founder? Especially, let's say, in fintech specifically, but maybe more broadly.
First, just get started. You can always have an excuse like, oh, now is not the right time. And I think it's the same principles that apply to breaking away and being an RIA. Like RIAs are founders as well, right? They're founding their own firm. Just get started, right? There's probably some excuse you have in your head as to, oh, I can't do this until this thing happens or until I figure this other thing out with my life. Just get started, right? The faster you get started, the faster you learn. Right, being an entrepreneur is always all about learning. Like how fast can you learn, incorporate your learnings, and continuously change, continuously grow. And the way we've always seen it is like we compound our learnings, right? So when I started at 15, 16, I didn't know anything about the industry, right? But the more I learned, the more I was able to compound my learnings and continuously compounding my learnings. So the speed at which I would learn between 21 and 22 would be much faster, and I would know much more than what I learned between 16 and 17. And you're just continuously compounding and compounding and compounding. So if you get started, you don't quit, and you continuously iterate, it's the perfectly founded
Who are your
formula for
heroes,
success.
founders? Like who's on the, who would you get statues of?
I think the conventional answer is Jeff Bezos. And the reason why is because Jeff Bezos is also an incredible operator.
I've heard you say you're making the Amazon of asset management.
Yeah.
I should have picked that up. Yep. Okay. Bezos one. Who else?
Bezos is one. I'm trying to think who else.
Because you've said OS of financial advisors. I was thinking Jobs has to be next.
Jobs is a crazy person. I aim not to be, that crazy. I think Airbnb, Brian Chesky, is a pretty incredible founder. Yep. He's built a great culture internally, and I think culture drives companies. And the more intentional you are about company culture, your values, how you think, how you operate, the better of a business, the better working of a business you're going to build. So I think Airbnb has done an incredible job creating company culture.
Awesome. Well, we're at time. We could do this all day. I feel like we could go for another walk and cover all these extra things. But thank you so much. Samir, you are future-proof. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the community, and I hope you stay for many, many more years. I mean, I'm not going anywhere, so you better come back.
Thank you for having me.